About a week ago, I went on a painting trip. So I wasn't feeling that adventurous on that day. So I just went on a little painting trip, and it was to my local river, and I went on my bicycle. So I cycled along the path by the river looking for a scene to paint, and I found a lovely scene. It was of a stony path, and on either side of the path there was this beautiful golden brown grass. And I set up all my equipment and did a painting. And this is what I painted. So I'm quite happy with this painting. So I think the sky is good. I'm quite happy with the mountains, although the tone might be a bit too strong. I like the hill and these trees. They might be bushes, but I think the highlight I did here was really good. And then here's the path. I'm quite happy with that. And here we've got that golden brown grass. And I'm really happy with this figure here. I think he looks wonderful, very dynamic, leaning forward, fantastic. The fisherman, I like to paint fishermen, but I think he's maybe not quite as good as I wanted him to be, but he's not bad, right? Anyway, so there's the painting. So I did a video of me doing the actual painting, which there'll be a link to in the description box. And I also did a video with another camera, and that was like a little distance away from me. And this is a bit complicated, but I used the other camera for audio, but at the same time, I'm using it to get interesting images of me painting, which I will add to the final video. I hope that makes sense. Later on at home, I did video editing from the video footage I had from this trip. And it was very interesting for me because some of the scenes I saw from the other camera, which was further away from me, were really beautiful. And they were so good that I took a few stills of those amazing images and then printed them out. And I'm just going to show them to you now when I find them. Where are they? So I found them. So here we go. So this is one of the first images I really liked. So as you can see, we've got this low viewpoint. Okay, maybe I should take it out of the plastic folder. It makes it easier. So I really liked the low viewpoint, and it makes the sky look amazing, and it also emphasizes the grass even more. So we've got this long stalk of grass going up from like the bottom to the top, and I think that looks beautiful. And I love the craziness of the grass. Whoops. I just think it's almost like an abstract painting looking at this bit. And that got me very excited. And then the next one is this. So I really love the shape of myself here painting. It looks a bit like a Jesus Christ moment. No, not quite, but well, maybe. There's some symbolism here, but I really love that dark figure, dominant figure in the scene, and the silhouette effect, and even my bicycle. At first I didn't like the bicycle, but later on I thought, no, it's interesting. And I've got my palette there as well. My palette, not my palette, my easel. Oh, I do actually have my palette in one hand. I've got my palette there and my brush in the other hand, then my easel and the bicycle. And to make a good painting, it's really important to try and have these feel connected if possible by, you know, like being literally touching one another or close together. And again, I love the colour of that grass, that golden brown colour. But then I love how it's just all over the place. The way it kind of is bent or almost snapped and coming down like that. It's beautiful. And the shadows. I think it looks wonderful. So I've never really painted grass up close. It's always been from a safe distance. So this is the opposite of that. And I knew it was going to be a little bit intimidating, shall we say, for me to try and paint that. And then there's one more, and really the only reason I'm showing you this is because I did a painting of this. And I think I just wanted to do a painting of myself from a different angle that might look quite interesting. And I thought, this is an interesting angle. This is quite an interesting angle. So there you go. That is the photos. So I hope you don't mind if I have a cup of tea. I love a cup of tea. This is my third cup, actually third pot of tea today. So continuing with the story, I realized that, like I said before, painting this wild grass was going to be a real challenge for me. So what I was going to do at first was use some scrap paper because there'd be less stress. And I've got a big pile of scrap paper which one of my students gave me. Very kind, right? And this is actually fairly good quality too. But then I remembered that I've got some really cheap watercolor paper in my art box over there. So I had a look and I was delighted to find that I've got huge amounts of it. So I've got this VIF art, about 50 sheets, maybe now about 40. And I've got even more of this even cheaper paper, which I think is called Sirius. So not silly ass. Sorry, bad joke. But anyway, I decided to use this cheap watercolor paper, and I'm now going to show you the paintings I did. Oh, and it was really good because I ordered this cheap paper last year, and I think I used it just once or twice, was disappointed with the results, and then put it in my art box and just left it there. Didn't touch it again. What a waste. So I'm glad I didn't throw it out, and it has become extremely useful. So I showed you this photograph, and now I'm going to show you my watercolor sketch of it on the cheap VIF art paper. And this is what I did. It's a bit crazy, right? Can you see this long stalk of grass? So I really wanted to do that, but to be honest, I'd be horrified by the very thought of doing that on quality paper. I really don't think I could do that because it's just too bold. But I actually like that, and I think there's something really nice happening here in terms of composition. Perhaps my figure should be a bit smaller. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Maybe a bit smaller and a bit more darker, because we want the colour maybe to be here and for him to be more in the background. But I really like it, and I quite like the figure as well. His arms are a little bit like a robot, so Mr. Computer Man there, But I'm still very happy with that. That was a fantastic experiment, and I would not have done this on quality watercolor paper. High quality, because quality can also be low, right? So the next one, so this one, which I really liked this one. So here is the painting I did, and I'm really happy with that. So I don't think I did anything too daring in this painting, but I was very free with my brush strokes of the grass. And I painted the bicycle in a very loose way, and I think it worked out wonderfully well. So the figure is a little bit wrong, but I still think it's a fantastic attempt. And I did another one, and I'm going to have to find that now. Where is it? That one is wonderful. In fact, I might have framed it. Just a minute. Vanity, right? No. Where are you? Here you are. So this one, I absolutely love it. And this is one of the big arguments here for using cheap watercolor paper. Look at that. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I think, Jesus Christ, but I think that's amazing. I especially like the grass. So for the grass, I went wild. I used yellow crayon. I used a palette knife. Let's find it. Maybe it's there, right? I used a palette knife and got this lovely texture, yeah? Now, if I was using good quality watercolor paper, I would not be using crayons, wax crayons, and I wouldn't be using a palette knife because I have little experience with them, and there's a high chance that I will mess it up. And you can see my long stalk of grass there. Yeah, maybe my figure is a bit too Jesus Christ-like, but there we go. So I'm going to do this again on good quality watercolor paper, but there you go. And then the next photo, where are you? Is that it? No, I've shown you that one. Sorry about this. Where's my next photo? And here is another photo that I think I didn't show you. So I absolutely love this image. So this is when I was coming home, and just look at the clouds and that curving shape and the light behind those grey clouds. It's very beautiful. And look at the mountains. They're a dark blue colour, but we've got this warm reddish brown winter grass. It's beautiful. And this long empty path. There's something lonely about it, but sometimes loneliness is not bad. Sometimes loneliness is peaceful, if that makes sense. And anyway, I had a go at painting this scene on the cheap watercolor paper, and I did this. And I think that's pretty good. I think there's something quite beautiful about this image. It's very simple, but I think it captures the colours fairly well. I'm not sure it captures the loneliness, but I'm very happy with that. And I did another one. This might even be before that painting, so my order is a bit confused, but I have to say the creative process, or whatever you want to call it, is quite a messy process, and it's very difficult to organize stuff, you know. It's always done later on. But I even framed this one, vanity, right? But look at my brush strokes. Aren't my brush strokes wonderful? And I think my brush strokes are wonderful because I was painting on cheap watercolor paper, and I didn't feel so intimidated or worried. Maybe worried is the right word. And so I ended up painting in a in a beautiful way with beautiful brushstrokes, and ending up, yeah, that's better, isn't it? And I ended up with this amazing painting. I think this is amazing. Let me know in the comments what you think. But I think that is like a finished painting. I think it's beautiful. And I think the reason why it's a finished painting is it just looks complete, and it's got an amazing feeling. The colours are wonderful, and the way I painted those clouds, is really amazing. But it's because I didn't feel worried. I wasn't worried because I could just throw this away if it was no good, because it's on cheap paper. So I've got just a few more paintings to show you, but I think you will find them very interesting. Now, just to show you how cheap this watercolor paper is, and I don't mean to like offend the company here, but I painted on this paper, and this is the Sirius paper, and it's rolling up somewhat like toilet roll. It is rolling up. So, but I was able to achieve this. Now, I think that's quite good. And one of the really exciting things I did in this painting, which I would never dream of doing on good quality paper, is I used this silver paint that I've got. Can you see it? And it was so fun. So that's another big point. One of the big points about using cheap watercolor paper is not only do you feel less worry, and you experiment more, you feel like you can experiment more, but also it's a lot of fun. It was so fun to use this silver paint. So I've had that in my drawer for, I don't know, for years and years maybe, and never used it. Or maybe I did, but I've forgotten. So I was really happy with it. And look at the grass here. Look how I've depicted the grass there. That is A1. That is really well done. I hope you like my figures. So a little anecdote here. I went hunting for figures because I wanted to add some figures to the path, and I wanted some reference, like good reference. So I went to my local river. Again, I love my local river, and I was looking for a man with a dog, and that's what I found. I found this man with a dog. Sadly, the real dog was one of these little dogs, and I wanted a medium-sized dog. So I had to look on the internet for that. And I've actually ordered a model of a golden retriever. Sadly, it's going to arrive in the middle of March. It's now about the end of January, so I've got a long wait, but it will be useful, I think, and I'm quite excited about that. Sometimes the joy is in the waiting. Maybe I'm just trying to rationalize that. Let's move on. But anyway, I also saw this chap here, this man with a little girl, his daughter, no doubt, and they were having a chat, this chap and this chap, and it was a lovely little scene. So I knew that would make a great thing to add to the paintings. Yeah, it would be a scene within a scene. So anyway, yeah, and here we are. This is those figures. So we've got the big scene, and then we've got this little scene of these people chatting with one another. And what makes this really good is we've got all these little elements, like we've got the dog, we've got the little child, as well as these two figures. And it just makes it interesting, in my opinion, anyway. So I really like that. And that also was done on very cheap. I mean, look at it. It's got cellulite, this paper. It was also done on cheap watercolor paper. So this is good quality. This is cheap. Well, yeah, good quality poor quality or cheap quality. It looks good, right? In fact, if you look at it carefully, do you think these colours look a little bit more vivid than these? It's possible, because what happens, I think, is on cheap watercolour paper, the paint stays more on the surface, whereas with it's wood pulp, yeah, whereas this is cotton. Whereas with the good quality paper, I think the paint sinks more into the paper, and it leads to a slightly duller effect with the colour. Could be wrong on that, but if you look at it, I think you can see the colours are a bit more vibrant on this. It sounds like I'm trying to promote cheap watercolour paper, but I'm not. Okay, moving on. So this was a little experiment I did, and I really like it. You see, this is what I mean about having fun with watercolour. So if you're painting on cheap watercolour paper, you do little fun things like this and don't care. And I think that looks fun. In fact, I think there's huge potential here. But one of the problems I have is that there's a point where I have to get things done and stay organized. It's like, yeah, I used to go roller skating, yeah, and they used to have this ramp. And I don't know if somebody once like went over the ramp, but they had one roller skate on the floor and one roller skate on the ramp, and it didn't end well. And when you're an artist, I'm an artist, okay, let's say painter. When you're a painter, yeah, now you're going to tell me about my walls, right? You should paint them. I know, 70s style, Japanese wallpaper, not so great, right? But anyway, moving on. So get back to my point. So one of the really hard things, or something that causes me a lot of grief, shall we say, as a painter, is that there's this creative side that can see so much potential in things and get so excited by images and has these creative ideas, and it's like a rocket and it wants to go. And then there's this other side of me that is trying to manage everything, the manager side, yeah, and the two do not meet easily. I think one of the important things about becoming a painter is learning how to get these two to work together in a way where you keep your sanity, because it's really too much. And I'll give you an example. I've got thousands and thousands of photos of landscapes on a D drive that is dying, and I'm trying to rescue them, but at the same time I'm trying to get rid of as many as possible, because it's overwhelming. And that's the problem with creativity. It can be overwhelming, and you need to find, like a marathon runner, you need to find your pace. And I still struggle with finding my pace. So although I would love to focus on this and develop this, and I might, it's this tug of war, yeah, I might, but I know there's another place I went to called Shaw Night a few weeks ago, and I need to do some paintings of that and make a video of that. Anyway, I won't talk about my woes or this thing, because I want to stay on the theme, stick to the point. Can be a bit difficult for me, but I think this is lovely. I think it's lovely, and I just did it all in one go, and I think there's real potential there for a lovely final painting. And here's another one that I framed, vanity again. But can you see that lovely silver in the clouds? And can you see, I used a lot of white paint here, and I also mixed it a lot with colours, and I just went real crazy with the highlights. I think that looks lovely. And in the grass, I'm sorry about the reflection. There's always something that doesn't work, yeah. So just have to make the best of it. But I think this painting has got an energy, a vibrancy to it. And I think that came from, when I painted it, my state, I don't know whether to say emotional state or mental state. It's kind of both, if that makes sense. And this is one of the things I learned. And it's basically this: when I'm using good quality paper, I tend to be more reserved. When I'm using cheap watercolor paper, I tend to be more daring and more wanting to experiment and try things. So this leads to another point, but let me have a cup of tea. I'm drying up here. So this is the other point. I have a special set of skills. And no, not those skills. I'm not Liam Neeson. So what I mean by that is I've been painting for about 15 or 20 years. And there are some things I've become really good at. So when it comes to using a liner brush, because I'm crazy about liner brushes and I've got so many of them, I am a superstar. I'm Jesus Christ with a liner brush. No. But I'm very good at using a liner brush and some other brushes. And I'm very good at achieving certain effects. Now, what happens when I'm painting on good quality paper, I'm of course going to bring that special skill set into play. Of course, right? I'm not going to do lots of things that I've got no experience at using, because it's going to be terrible, right? But what happens is that superpower is also a major limitation. So I'll give you an example. So say I'm painting on good quality paper and the painting's going really well, swimmingly, it's going really well. And then I think to myself, if I use a palette knife, I could get this amazing textural effect, which kind of captures something in the real scene, yeah? That sounds great, right? But this is the problem. The painting's going really well. If I continue, I'm going to end up with a great painting. However, if I use this palette knife, there's suddenly this element of big risk, because I haven't practiced much at all with a palette knife. So there's a high chance it will not turn out as I want it to, as I expect it to. So there's a high chance of failure. So then I've ruined a painting that was going really well, which is disappointing. And also I've wasted some paper. And I will be honest here, maybe this is just me, maybe I'm an emotional guy, but if I do a crappy painting, I can get really depressed about that. And the feeling lingers for a while, maybe a day or two, sometimes 3 days. So I can get really quite depressed about that. So I think somewhere in my brain, there's a reluctance to step out of that special skill set I have. So anyway, I think that is an interesting point. And I just wanted to share that. Time for another cup of tea, I think. So the story continues, because now I'm going to do these same paintings, but on good quality watercolor paper. So what we will have is 2 paintings of the same scene, and one is done on cheap watercolor paper and the other is done on good quality watercolor paper. And it's going to be really exciting, I think, to compare them. And so the story continues. All the best, and bye for now.